Welcome back to the Eight Man Breakdowns podcast. This is where we discuss all phases of the game of football, including philosophy, play concepts, questions, and more. Today's topic will be another quick Q&A session, and today's question is, what's the most unusual offense you've ever played against? Okay, that's a great question and definitely an interesting topic. So what I'll do, though, here to answer this is I'll go into what I think was the most unusual offense that we've seen. Also, I'll throw in some unusual individual formations and some unusual individual plays that I've also seen during my time coaching eight man. So let's start with that unusual total offense. So what was the most unusual that we played against? I've had a little more time to think about this since I seen the comment, but I'd have to say the most unusual overall offense that we saw or played against was, it's probably been about 4 or 5 years ago now, but a no-huddle single wing offense that called plays using hand signals. Okay, and I'll say the hand signals itself wasn't unusual, but to be paired with a single wing offense that ran about 4 plays altogether, that was probably the unusual part. You know, another thing about this single wing offense that we played or went up against was that there was no misdirection or deception built into this single wing offense, which usually is like the staple of the single wing offense. Deceive the defense, hide the ball. They usually know what's coming, you know, some sort of run, and usually some misdirection or deception is built into it. But for whatever reason in this offense, it wasn't. And now, again, before I go too far, I'm not trying to speak poorly of another coach. And I myself don't remember this coach. I don't know him personally. And I'll also say I'm not perfect by any means, you know. And so defending this unusual offense that we faced, I do think that he was a very young, inexperienced coach. You know, I think he was in his first or second year ever coaching, if I remember. And again, he was trying something that he believed in, you know, so you can't ever fault anyone for that. But nonetheless, it was definitely an unusual combination, you know, of a run dominant single wing offense with just no deception or misdirection built in, and then signaling the plays, like 4 or 5 of the plays that they ran, you know, 3 or 4 were run and maybe 1 or 2 were pass, and they signaled them in with hand signals. It wasn't hard to find out what they were doing. And again, the no huddle system of it kind of seemed almost pointless because they were hurrying up just to take their time and run one of their 5 plays. And again, I'm not saying hand signals are bad, but again, it was just their small amount of plays didn't necessarily fit, in my opinion. So it was kind of unusual. But yeah, I would say that was probably the most unusual thing, was very old school single wing with no deception, but also using a modern version of play calling, going with no huddle hand signals. So kind of an unusual combination altogether. So let me continue on some unusual offenses in eight man. So honestly, you could kind of say that the I formation could somewhat be considered unusual these days, because you do see a lot more spread teams these days. Personally, I'm a huge spread offense guy, and I think it's great for the game. You know, good for the players. And I think if you do it correctly, it can be a dominant offense. I mean, like with anything, if you practice and execute it the right way and really commit to it, anything can be dominant, especially if you got the guys to do it and you're adapting your offense to fit your players. But actually, I'll talk more about the 8-man spread offense in another podcast. So again, I'll reemphasize my same point on all topics. There's no right or wrong way to run an offense or a defense, for that matter, at any level. They'll all work effectively if you adapt to the plays you have. You know, you keep it fun and you keep your terminology easily understandable for high school age kids. Another thing, though, I'll recommend is to reiterate every day at practice why you're doing what you're doing. You know, if they know why they're doing it, whatever it is they're doing, then they're that much more likely to consistently execute it the way you want them to, because they now know what they're doing, they know why they're doing it. So continuing on with some unusual 8-man offenses, probably one of the overall most unique formations in any football game is the swinging gate. And you see it every once in a while in 8-man, not as much anymore. It's kind of a rare occurrence for like a 2-point situation. But recently I saw a twist on the 8-man swinging gate, probably a couple years ago. And I've seen it a few times since then, but nobody does it really consistently. But in essence, the unusual swinging gate that I saw, though, it looks like a double bunch formation or a trips on each side of the formation, with the quarterback in the center being alone all by themselves in the middle of the field. So it's not a trips, though. It looks like a double trips or double bunch, but 2 of your guys on the outside are linemen. You know, you got a tight end and a guard on each end of the field with the back behind them. All right, so split all the way out wide. And if you line up in that formation quick enough, the defense doesn't have time to adjust. You basically have a quick now screen. You pop it out there on each side for an opportunity for a quick score or a quick yardage, no matter what. Because again, the defense got to scramble, and if they don't put 3 to 4 guys out there, then you're going to be able to pick and choose which side you want to attack, and you got all that room in front of you with a couple guys in front to block also. I've also seen 7 guys on the line of scrimmage in a tight formation, meaning you have 2 tight ends on each side. You got your 2 guards, you got your center, and almost like a 7-man line with an empty backfield with 1 guy back there. I've seen it that way before as well, which is kind of unusual in itself, but there's not many things you can do out of it. You can release those guys, your receivers, to the outside and run a quick out, or you can just block up the middle and like a wildcat run game right behind it. But again, that's kind of unique. There's a lot of unique and unusual formations that can be used in football no matter what. Overall, there's no right or wrong offense or defense to run at any level. Anything can work effectively if you adapt to your players, keep it fun, and you keep your terminology easily understandable for kids. And that's going to do it for this episode of the 8-Man Breakdowns podcast. Remember, videos come out every Tuesday night, so be sure to tune in. If you have a question for me, the best way to reach me is by commenting in the comment section below. If you've learned anything or enjoyed any of these videos, please click subscribe and check out some of my other videos right here on the screen. And like always, thanks for tuning in, guys.